How's it going, everybody? This is Christopher Thomas. Here's a story on how a stranger becomes my best friend and then like family to me. Back when I lived in Farmington, New Hampshire, on Mechanic Street, I had a friend named Ricky I went to the same school as and shared the same class as him. I went to his house one day and met his dad named Patrick, who smoked Marlboro Red cigarettes, the same cigarettes as me. And I used to bum Marlboro cigarettes off him all the time, and he had all kinds of firearms, and I got really big in the firearms because of him. And eventually he couldn't pay his bill, his rent, so he had to move out. So I helped him pack up all of his firearms and move them into storage. And then he moved into his house that was being foreclosed by the banks during his divorce. And while he lived there, I used to sneak him through my window on Mechanic Street all the time, and he would sleep in my bed while I'd stay up all night playing video games. Or he would stay up all night playing video games while I slept in my bed. Or he would sleep on my couch in my room while I slept on my bed. We would alternate. And one morning he came out of my room, and my dad almost freaked out seeing a 35, almost 40-year-old man spending the night over an 18-year-old son's house. And I told him to relax. It's my friend Ricky's dad. He relaxed instantly. They started talking and became friends instantly. And he found out Pat was big in the firearms, had all kinds of firearms. He got my dad in the firearms, and my dad started buying firearms off him. My dad gave me permission at 18 to buy my first Desert Eagle. I bought a Beretta off him, and my dad's girlfriend wasn't a big fan of him because he was getting him in the firearms, and she wasn't into that. And one day when my brother was over, I accidentally shot a Desert Eagle between my feet through the floor. I told him to leave just in case the cops show up. My dad got home from work. I told him I accidentally shot through the floor. He pulls out a sidearm, says, "What you do?" This. Then he shot through the floor. And you couldn't see the bullet holes through the floor because of the rug. And Pat came over one day feeling the holes on the bullet, where the bullet holes went through the floor, feeling the holes in the floor. I was holding my AK-47. I then shot a few rounds through the floor. And it was a stupid thing. I never should have done that because I could have messed with his hearing or caused him to go deaf. It just wasn't smart of me. And one day in front of my place on Mechanic Street, the cops were called because they had a report of someone holding a gun to someone's head. They showed up. We told them they're crazy. That's a false report. You guys need to get out of here. You're wasting your time. And they ended up leaving us alone. And one day, me and Pat were walking through town, and he was opening his jacket and kept flashing me his sidearm, saying, "I'm not flashing you, I'm not flashing you." A pedestrian saw it. The cops arrived. They searched us. They found a handgun mag on me, told me I'm too young to be carrying this type of ammunition. And they tried telling Pat a concealed carry permit is a privilege, not a right, and which I disagree. A concealed carry permit is a right, not a privilege. You don't need permission to carry. It's a constitutional right, as far as I'm concerned. And while Pat lived at his house that was being foreclosed by the banks, I went up there one night shooting a gun beside his house into the woods. I heard a scream saying, grab Leroy, grab the kids." Will came out with a shotgun. Pat came out with an AK-47. They came around the corner of the house, both pointing them at me. My handgun was holstered at this time, and this is some of the shenanigans we get into, having fun. And I used to drink at his house all the time and smoke there. Pat didn't smoke weed, but I did. And one time, me, Will, and Patrick were in his backwoods by the fire pit, and I threw an AK-47 bullet in the fire. Will started running really fast. Never seen a big guy run so fast. He ran behind a tree. Pat's crouched over the fire trying to push the bullet out of the fire with a stick, and it went off in his face. We used to shoot tannerite on the front of vehicles on his property and watch the hoods of vehicles fly open and smash against the windshield. And while I lived in Mechanic Street, my dad, Patrick, and me used to go hunting all the time and shooting and camping and mountain climbing, and we all became like best friends and like family together. And eventually, a group of people got together, went inside his house that was being foreclosed by the banks, Started shooting through the steps, targets on the steps, ketchup bottle, mustard bottles, shooting them. They were getting all over the ceiling above the steps. Bullets were going through the steps, through the door, through the wall, through the bathtub, through the back wall, through the back of the bathtub, through the wall, into the woods. And Pat was ended up being investigated because someone shot up his place. They were investigating Pat. I'm not saying he knew anything about it, but a group of people shot up the place and pulled support beams out, made it completely worthless, and wrecked the value, even though the value was greatly diminished. And eventually I moved in to a place in Northwood, New Hampshire with Patrick. I used to hunt in the backwoods, and he used to work a lot, and not really much to say about when I lived with him. He used to smoke a lot of Cloud 9 and synthetic marijuana when I lived there, and started getting into politics when I lived there, and got kicked out, moved to Rochester, New Hampshire at Northwood. And Pat used to live there too because he didn't have a place at that time, and I used to make him food every time he got out of work. I'd make sure I had steak, potatoes, and corn ready for him every night. And my dog Peanut used to go wild every time he showed up. And he was always like family to me. And this is how the story of a stranger becomes best friend, then family to me. And when I got chased out of my place by the Rochester, New Hampshire Police Department, and I went homeless, Pat was also chasing. We heard noises when I was out in the woods. When I got chased out of my place, when I was out in the woods hunting off the land and everything, we heard branches break. He handed my rifle. He would go chase down the noise. He's very protective. And this is how a stranger becomes best friend and then like family to me. And like, share, leave comments, and peace out.